happy for you to drop off now. We'll record the session so you can share that between your colleagues and in the company itself as we move forward through the session. Also, as well, just as we're working through, we'll have a Q&A session at the end. But we do have a chat and a Q&A section within the tool itself. So if you have any questions, please put it in the Q&A, but please feel free to use the chat as a chat function itself. So welcome to today's session. My name is Mark Innes from SAP. So I am the sustainability champion for one of our sustainability solutions, which is called Product Footprint Management for Clean Operations. I will go into what that is as we work through the session itself, but please feel free to ask questions in the Q&A as we're working through, or we can unmute everybody at the end of the session to ask it personally. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see my screen. So the objective of today's session really is to give you a good insight into our solution and what we've done and how we've got to this point as we work through. But I always find it useful to start off with something quite useful from a sustainability perspective, and somebody likes of David Attenborough that we have on the screen now. This is something that we at SAP take very seriously in terms of sustainability. We've got the environmental, social, and governance, ESG, as you'll hear quite often in that term, and it's something that we need to really address. I'm sure I don't need to tell you that, now. And that's something that, from an SAP perspective, that we can really help and influence, certainly with the solutions that we have going forward. So I think it's so important that we have created this issue unknowingly a lot of the times, but it's something that we can do to achieve and to actually sort it out ourselves. In terms of what we're going to cover today, so we're going to give you an idea of what we're doing from an SAP standpoint on sustainability. Where does that sit within the whole business itself? How do we be an example to companies and businesses and partners across the world? So we'll cover what we're doing from that point of view, how we can enable customers going forward in our product portfolio. So what does that mean? What does it look like? And specifically hone in and target on our carbon footprint solution, which is for small to mid-sized businesses, give you a really good insight into that and the objective of the solution itself. Okay, so what does this mean from an SAP perspective? So we at SAP are doing all we can to do our part really, and in terms of the purpose to help the world run better. You hear our strapline quite often in terms of making lives better, and that's really our objective with our sustainability solutions, and that's really to really create a positive economic, environmental, and social impact, certainly across the globe. So sustainability is not really that competitive, I would say, at the moment. You may disagree, but between sort of some of the top vendors that have got sustainability solutions, we see this as something helping, helping obviously the environment, as well as the social and governance aspects of the ESG tagline. So that's something that we really working together. We're working together with other businesses across the world in terms of the World Business Council to really sort of come together and come up with a solution that really helps the climate and helps going forward. So that's really what we're trying to achieve there, and we see that we have a bit of a dual responsibility and a dual role when it comes to certainly sustainability from an enabler and from an exemplar perspective. So how can we really live up to this objective? So at SAP we see ourselves in the exemplar role, first of all, which is something that we need to lead by example. So we need to do our own homework. We need to really instill everything in our own operations. From a large corporate business ourselves, our carbon emissions, we need to really address that. And that's one thing we're doing from an exemplar perspective, and I'll go into what we're doing a little bit in a moment on that. So really based on our own efforts to run sustainability and sustainably, we need to do that, and we need to learn from our own actions doing that. And that is a key aspect to really leading by example itself. We want to also provide customers with products and services that enable them to run sustainably, and obviously what the challenges that brings. So that is a key part of that. So both pillars are really important, but the enabler side itself is how we scale. Obviously, we need to address our own operations, but also we need to help customers address theirs at the same time. And the fact that we've got over 440,000 roughly customers worldwide, and 80+% of transactions touching an SAP system, then we've got a really good opportunity to help solve this problem that we need to solve going forward. So that is a key aspect into that. And you'll see quite often as well, from a pillar perspective, we put our solutions and we look at this from three different sectors. So we look at climate action under zero emissions, we look at circular economy and social responsibility, and really what we're going to talk about today is more the environmental piece, which is our solutions and how we can actually solve some of those problems going forward. So what have we done, and what process and what journey have we been on from SAP? And this goes back actually a long way, and actually before even the 2009 timeline that we have here. So we were actually, I think, back in 2000, so 22 years ago, we were one of the first 50 signatories on the UN Global Compact. So that is businesses signing up to make a difference. So we started a long time ago. Back in 2009, we made a long-term strategic goal in line with our sustainability targets. But in earnest, I would say certainly over the last few years, we've been looking at how we can actually achieve the relevant targets that are there. So things like carbon neutral and net zero carbon by 2030. So what we've done is we've actually brought that forward, and by 2023, which is something that we want to achieve a carbon neutral aspect from, how do we then move on to be net zero by 2030 in our case? So it's something that we really want to drive. That's 20 years earlier than we originally targeted at 2050. So that's something that we're looking on bringing forward. So it's a key aspect of how we're driving sustainability going forward, and that's a key aspect from an SAP point of view. So I'm not going to go through the rest of the journey that we've been on, but essentially, from what we want to achieve going forward, then we need to drive that through our own operations, as I said earlier, and that is a key aspect of being, leading by example from there. So what are we doing from an SAP point of view? So we've got some key milestones to achieve, whether it's the carbon neutral by 2023 or net zero by 2030, and we've got a number of issues that we need to address, like other businesses have at the same time. So in just to give you an idea, so last year in 2021, our top emissions from a business perspective was corporate cars, which is the scope 1 from the greenhouse gas protocol. We've also got data centers, so electricity in the data centers, and also in our own data centers, but also in external data centers as well. So they cover the different, if you're familiar with the greenhouse gas protocol, scope 1, 2, and 3. We've got issues in across those different sectors. Actually, going back to 2020, before obviously COVID, etc. hit in, business flights as well is a key aspect to that. So this is what we need to achieve. And actually, in scope 3 of the greenhouse gas protocol, actually 84% of our emissions are in that scope, which actually scope 3 is covers a lot of businesses in terms of what that is: transportation, employees, diversity. It's a lot of different items within scope 3. So there's some things that we need to tackle ourselves in terms of becoming environmentally sustainable at SAP itself. So in terms of some of the key initiatives that we're working on, and I'll go through every one of these, but we're looking at from a data center perspective to be 100% renewable, and that is something that we have achieved already. We're looking at our car fleet as well. By 2025, we'll be just electric only. So we're doing different things to really sort of achieve those goals that we've set out for ourselves. Another initiative we're working on as well, which is working in the United Kingdom, working with Cambridge University and the highways agencies, to create some sustainable roads as well. So using tech, self-healing concrete, that type of thing, because obviously it's the bigger picture. The bigger picture to become to reduce or to become net zero from a carbon perspective. It's all sorts of different actions and activities that we need to resolve. So that is key for us to really drive those type of projects going forward. From an enable perspective, so what we have in here, we have a number of solutions that we offer to customers, and I'm certainly not going to go through all of them in terms of our portfolio. So it's quite expansive, and the idea of just showing this slide really is not anything else apart from we've been on this journey for a long while now, and we're certainly not at the end of it. So we've created a number of solutions for different purposes. A lot of these solutions are for larger enterprise customers, which is typical from an understanding perspective where SAP is perceived to be. But 80% of our customers actually at SAP are small to mid-size, and that's something that we are addressing from a sustainability perspective as well. So the product in green, which is the product footprint management for clean operations, is one that we are driving for small to mid-sized customers, and that's something that that we wanted to do to make it affordable, to make it simple. We understand that customers, small to mid-sized customers, don't really have sustainability departments. They have, the customers we've worked with so far, they have some key principles within the business that is targeted to drive these topics, but that's not their full-time job. So we needed to create a solution that actually that facilitates that. It means that it's simple to use, simple to implement, simple to integrate to the systems that you've got. So SAP Business One, for example, and that's something that we wanted to really drive with this solution. And I'll cover a lot more in depth of what that solution is and what the objective of it is. We'll also go into a demo as well and give you an insight into the product itself. So this is really just an insight. Again, you see the pillars that's there. We've got reporting at the top, then we've got the three different sections, the zero emissions, zero waste, and inequality as well. But certainly what we focus on today is product footprint management for clean operations, which comes under the climate action option. So we'll really look at that and the journey that we've been on with this. So actually we started 3.5 years ago. Actually it was before then, but in earnest we started 3.5 years ago developing this solution with the mindset for our small and mid-sized customers. So hopefully we've been successful in that, and what that really means to businesses like of yourselves. Just before I go into the solution and cover what it's all about, I just wanted to show a very quick video, which is a girl called Gitanjali. She's 17 now. She was 16. She's an inventor. She invented different things. She invented a device that detected lead in water, for example, an anti-bullying app as well. So actually a very intelligent, very clever young girl. I just wanted to show a quick video of her sort of speaking about the challenges and things going forward. So I'll just roll the video onto that. Perfect. So that really just bolsters and emphasizes where we want to really focus our attention. And as I said right at the start of the call, that we can really make a difference with our customers in order to drive those issues really, and how we can solve those, certainly from in this example, a carbon emissions perspective, how we can make that easy for businesses, or certainly a lot easier for businesses to drive that and to make that something that's a topic that they focus on in their business itself. So what is product footprint management for clean operations? So that's something that we're going to cover now, and is really key. So our solution, the objective of our solution is to analyze carbon emissions produced by businesses, so they can react in terms of what they need to do from there. So we see different challenges at the moment from a customer's perspective. This can become competitive. They're asking businesses, their customers are asking for information on carbon impact and carbon footprint because that impacts their carbon emissions. Obviously, it's the full supply chain that has an impact on this. So we see that. We also see suppliers, maybe bigger suppliers, or bigger customers, even driving that down into the smaller customers and smaller suppliers. So it's really something that we see that's coming from all angles. The customers that we've worked with, so we worked with a number of customers and a number of partners over the last 3 years to really understand what is needed, from a solution perspective and how we can do that. So I think, talking to those customers, we've developed it in a way that makes that achievable for businesses to do that. They don't have the huge resources, as I mentioned before, budget to run their own sustainability departments. So that's something that we really want to drive through this solution to help in doing that. So the solution itself is actually agnostic. So it's an SAP solution. Obviously, we have integrated it to Business by Design and Business One, which is due to be released. The integration is due to be released in the next few weeks. So it is actually ready. It's just we're waiting for the 2208 Business One release to be released, and that integration will come with that. So we've integrated to some of the SAP applications, but equally it is a standalone solution with APIs that allow you to integrate and push data into. So we understand that not everything might be in your ERP solution. You might have other things. You might have Business One running with another manufacturing solution, or you could have different landscapes in terms of what that looks like. So we've got APIs that is available there to push data into to allow you to bring all that together. And we actually analyze right down to the product and material level within your business. So we give the full transparency on the carbon impact coming from the supply chain, coming from all aspects of that carbon emissions that product is actually generating. And that's something that we do down to that granularity. We follow the greenhouse gas protocol. So as I mentioned right at the start of the call, that's scope 1, 2, and 3 with different sections within that, and that we actually follow that protocol, those standards from there. So that is key to the success of the solution. We're fully auditable as well, which is fantastic for auditors, to follow and trace all those different aspects through the solution itself. Also mentioned about working with different organizations, World Business Council, in order to really drive that requirement and what is needed within the solution for small and mid-sized businesses. That is something that we're working on heavily. Also, we're branching out into other topics, like the supply chain topics. How do you get information from your suppliers for any raw materials, for example, that you have within the business itself? So we've factored all that into the solution itself, and I'll cover that in a moment. On the right hand side, you see that we based on SAP Fiori, if anybody's familiar with that. So that's the user interface. We sit on the business technology platform. So that's SAP's development and technology platform that we have. So we actually run our solution off that. But we, again, part in making it simple, that the solution that we have doesn't require anything else around it. So the solution is as it is. So if you were interested in the solution, you can take a trial, and I'll cover that later on. But essentially, you pay for the solution. You don't have to pay for anything around it. It is what it is, and that can then be integrated. Obviously, when you work with a partner like BitPeople, if you've got integrations that need to happen, then you can work with them in terms of integrating the solution going forward. So why use this solution? Well, again, it's for me to really sort of show the benefits of what it is, and then you as a business, seeing if that is going to fit with what you need and what you require. But really, consumers are driving this. So customers and consumers are really, they're taking businesses forward, and how can they take that action to really drive that. And we see going forward there's roughly over 600 voluntary and mandatory regulations actually around ESG and the standards, and that currently exists. And we see as we're getting into 2023, 2024, there's going to be more mandatory regulations coming through, certainly across Europe and across North America. So getting, even if you think at the moment, we don't necessarily need it. I think, it's something that you need to start at least thinking about and start actioning on, because it's something that is going to snowball, in my opinion, certainly over the coming months and years. So that's key. What we wanted to do is, again, with a solution to make it have a low adoption barrier, addressing existing users. So it's typical business users and not the sustainability experts, and that's what we wanted to drive for that. And that is key to make this successful, that it can address your needs as a business and as a small business going forward. At the moment, the scope that we cover from a functional perspective is targeted around product-centric companies, manufacturing companies, those that have got high, in regions, high carbon prices. So that's been our initial focus. As we move further into the roadmap of the solution, we're covering more of the service orientated aspects, which, if you're familiar with, again, GHG, you've got the scope 3.1 and above, which is around business travel, employee expenses, and everything that encompasses that almost that project orientated scenario as well. So we're covering more and more on that in the roadmap as we move forward. So that's key. Our native integration to B1 and Business by Design is another great aspect to that. We wanted to again have two SAP applications that just talk to each other, which isn't always the case, if we're honest. So that is another great USP that we've got, that the data is key to sustainability. Understanding the data, where does data come from, bringing that together, understanding the carbon impact of all of that, and we have obviously the great USP that we've got the ERP solutions, we've got the sustainability solution, we can make them talk together. And that's key for us. We also use what's called an energy flow model, and I'll give you a demonstration of that. And that is what brings let's say the ERP data and the energy carbon-based emissions from scope 1 and scope 2 together. And that's the main issue that businesses have got. Trying to do that manually is so difficult, and not quite sure where to start. So that's something that we address in the solution itself. Okay, so just to give you a quick glimpse or a demo of the solution itself. We'll share these slides afterwards as well, by the way, and there is actually a recording within this slide deck as well, so you can actually play back the demonstration as well. I'll flick to a live demo just to show you what that looks like. If I can do that, just give me 1 second. Okay. Just give me 2 seconds. Let me just stop sharing my screen a second. Get this to work. There we go. Okay. So let me sign into the solution. So as I mentioned before, we're based on the business technology platform, and the way that the solution is positioned, actually, it's not user centric. So you can have as many people accessing the system as you like. Really, you don't pay for that necessarily. It's based on the complexity and the footprint of your business, and that's how we price it. So we can help you with that, and Bid People can help you if you want to look at it from a pricing perspective. We'll cover that later on as well. But essentially, we see this as a solution typically for certain roles in the business. It could be heads of department, head of production, head of purchasing. It could be the CFO. Those that have got those sustainability drives and they want to really look into the data that's coming through. So you wouldn't necessarily give everybody access to this. You could. But typically we see certain roles in the business driving this from a solution point of view. So we'll just log into the system. As I mentioned before, this is based on Fiori, so it's got a Fiori interface. It should look quite similar, obviously, from a Business One perspective as well. So this is the product. What we'll do is we'll give you a bit of an insight into, what it looks like to push through sort of data and get carbon emissions out the other side, and how this is actually set up within the product itself. So first of all, I'll show you from a results perspective what that looks like. So if I drive into the footprint estimate, so this is the detailed results of data coming into the system based on energy flow, energy meter readings, gas, electric, etc., and what the actual carbon impact of your products are. So this is a full list of all the footprint estimates that have been generated within the system. I just want to look at those that are done through production. So just to narrow down the search a little bit further. So within our demonstration environment, we base the data itself on a manufacturing process that's based on manufacturing different items like chocolate, strawberry cakes, biscuits, etc. So that's the example that I'm going to show you now. So just looking into one of these areas, so I can drill down onto any of these produced items themselves. So looking at, for this particular period, I can then drill down into look at, for example, this is the chocolate cake, and actually I can see that there's 3.6 tons of carbon emissions that's been generated for this product. So if I drill into that, what it takes me into is the analytics side. So this is the Sankey diagram that really allows you to analyze your products, see where the carbon impact's coming from, or the high carbon impact's coming from, and then address it. So in this case, in this example, we see that the chocolate cake is what we drilled into. So there's 3 tons of carbon that's been generated for this. We can see the output. So this is what has been made, and that's been the output of the particular chocolate cake. What's actually gone into the chocolate cake is we've got different sections here. So we've got the material input. So obviously the raw materials that make up that. So if I look at here, it looks relatively small in terms of the carbon impact on that overall 3.6 tons. But if I look down into the resourcing and the resource aspects, so it could be machines, it could be energy, could be anything that impacts that. I can see that the oven, okay, that's not too bad either. But if I look at the actual assembly, so the production assembly in this case is actually driving a very high impact on that. So what I can then do is drill down into that, so it makes the chocolate assembly sort of centralized in terms of our analysis. So then I can see, okay, well, so there's actually electricity going into this, which seems relatively low as well, but the cooling system to cool down the products is actually relatively high. So I can then drill down into that. So you can essentially keep going right down to the granularity of the data itself. So I can then see that the electric meter and the gas meter, I can drill down again. So I can see actually the natural energy source that's coming from the provider, or our provider, which you can split into multiple providers, is actually generating quite a high carbon consumption. So then that gives you the impetus to address that, potentially address that. So you either obviously, you can then speak to the energy source provider, or you can switch providers, to more of a sustainability focused provider itself. So that just gives you a really great insight into where that carbon emissions is coming from. Equally, it could be coming from one of the raw materials. So if I go back, you can drill down into the raw materials. So in this case, the dark chocolate, you can see that actually it's coming from the materials actually coming from different suppliers. So we can actually see, so this particular supplier doesn't seem very high, but we can interrogate it anyway. and see that actually that's where the main carbon's coming from a raw material perspective. So then again, we can have conversations with the supplier. And this is what I was talking about right at the start in terms of driving that need and requirement from customers and suppliers. This will drive, so you could then have the conversations with the suppliers and say, okay, the carbon footprint on your material that you're providing, could be the strawberries, dark chocolate, whatever, we need that reducing. So what are you doing as a supplier to do that? And that's a key aspect to the solution. Okay, so if we go back to the start, so that just gave you an insight into looking at results within the product itself. How do we get to those results? So there's different actions within here. So this is where transactions are imported. So if you, again, with Business One, we integrate that, so that will come across automatically once that integration is set up. We've also got the master data. So master data tends to be obviously not a one-off situation. Obviously, if you get new data, new products coming through, then that can transfer the delta across. But then you have a regular business transactions that come across from your Business One solution itself. So that can be typically you might just do that once a month to analyze the impact of that month itself. But how is that all brought together? So if we have a look at the energy flow model, and this gives you an idea of how we piece all that together. Okay, so within the energy flow itself, so we can look at, so we can have different energy flow models within the system. We can have different energy sources. So in this example, we've just got electricity and gas, different energy carriers. Obviously that drives that again, so power, cooling water, etc. The resources that typically will come across from your Business One solution. So what are the different production lines that need to come across from there? But if we have a look in the energy flow models and just drill into this and just show you from a graphical perspective. So this is something that is set up. Let me just shrink that a little bit. So this is what is set up for you as a customer. So working with the likes of Bid People, that they will set this up with you in terms of what your model looks like. So to give you an example, so in our demo environment, we've got the energy sources coming in. So we've got electricity and we've got the gas coming through. And in terms of meter readings of those, we can be simple, and you can key in a meter reading on a monthly basis, or again, further down the line, if you want to, we can start to do something a little bit more clever, and bring in the meter readings through either IoT or automatic that's brought through. But essentially, this is configured and set up based on your outfit. So in our example, we've got the energy sources coming in. You see that those with red circles are the meter readings at in the point of the production in this case. Now you might have just a meter for the whole utility or warehouse, that's fine, or you might have them on specific production lines. Again, however your setup is, that we can do that. So we have the different meter readings, we have the resources in here, so we've got the cooling system, and the ones in blue are coming from Business One system, which is the resources. So these are the production lines. So you've got the oven, the assemblies working through as well. So this essentially is bringing the ERP data together and the energy data together to bring into one to get the carbon impact. Now, in situations where we have, a single meter, for example, then there are allocation rules that are set up that can apportion that meter reading across depending on how many hours has been spent on that particular machine. So you might have a particular one that is driving more down the oven rather than the chocolate assembly or the fruitcake assembly in this case, for example. Okay, so that is how we bring all that together in terms of the energy flow and bringing your ERP data together at the same time. So I've mentioned about allocation, so we can do that. We've also got, we can do manual emissions as well. So for example, in this case, we've got the cooling agent or methane. It could be transportation. It could be anything where you have emissions that have an impact, obviously, on that production that you're not receiving ERP data for. So we can do manual emissions, and again, those allocations are then apportioned across the products at the relevant percentage that is being consumed at the time. So that's something that we can actually factor in as well within the solution. And just the last thing I want to touch on, or actually one of the last things, so we have something called the purchase product footprint. So this is the raw materials. So again, one of the challenges that we have from a raw materials perspective is that, does the supplier know what the carbon tonnage is on their raw materials? Maybe, maybe not. More often that's not the case. So we can either get that from the supplier, if they know what that is, that can be recorded against the relevant raw material. So what happens is, obviously, when that raw material is consumed, then we know what the carbon impact is of that. Alternatively, there are different options. So the things called lifestyle assessment databases, which you can access. Some of them are free, some of them are paid for, which allow you to get average carbon footprint data for different materials. So again, if the supplier's got no idea what that is, then it's not an exact science by using something like that, but it gives you a good indication and maybe even a good starting point to get raw material information based on carbon information, sorry, based on your raw materials. Okay, so that was just to give you a glimpse and an insight into the product itself and what it looks like. So there's the video that'll be on the actually on the section itself. So you can have access to that again on the playback of the recording. So what do we have in terms of the product? So there is you can actually access a trial version, which is free of charge for 30 days, no commitment. So you can sign up to that. Again, there's a link on the deck itself, or you can search through sap.com. So this will give you access. So these are guided tours. So it allows you to click through the solution, get a good look and feel of what I've just showed you there on the demonstration. So that's a really good thing to take up and have good insight into the product itself. Just have a play around with that. So from SAP perspective, again, we've mentioned this right at the start, what we're trying to drive, and it shouldn't be now a decision between profitability and sustainability. You might hear sort of top line, bottom line, green line, and that's something that we're factoring into our solutions itself. So that's something that you can drive and use this solution for to really analyze your green line and your footprint itself. Different reporting aspects as well within the solution, which allows you to do more of a balance sheet. And on the video, actually, the video recording, you can see that when you play that back, that you can actually see from an analytics perspective, what the balance sheet aspect of carbon is as well from a financial aspect. But the challenges that we see going forward, and from customers, this is what customers have told us, that they need to start this journey and look at, establishing a baseline. So we talked about supplier footprints, really establishing a baseline where to start from. So once you've done that, then you can move into sort of developing and refining that. So again, analyzing, look at the carbon footprint of your solutions, look at where that's coming from, analyzing it, and then addressing it going forward. So and that's something that you can do, in a collaboration perspective with solutions like what we've just seen today. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. And if there's been any questions in the chat, Emil, we can address those now. Or if anybody would like to speak up, we can unmute you going forward. Emil, is there any questions that we need to cover?
Not right now, but let's just take a few minutes to look at the questions if there are anyone. I also think you can see the chat mark.
I'm just having a look now. Okay, so there's nothing in the Q&A section. And yeah, so there's no questions in there at the moment. Anybody would like to post a question in, you can feel free to put it in the chat if you like, rather than the Q&A. Happy with that. Or if anybody would like to unmute themselves, Emil, can they unmute themselves, or do we need to do that?
No, not yet. They can chat in the in the chat.
Okay. So we'll just give it 1 minute or two, just for anybody that wants to put a question in there. But again, if you don't want to ask a question today, absolutely fine, not a problem with that at all. Please reach out to bid people and ask for more information. We've got some links that we can share with you that's got different assets on there that you can access. Obviously there's the trial that you can sign up to do as well, which will give you a good insight into that. Pricing, speak to bid people as well. So pricing is very competitive. Starts at hundreds of euros, so it's not a big thing. Again, as I said before, it's not based on users. It's based on the complexity and the size of your data that comes through, and we've got a calculator that will make that simple to understand. So more than happy to help you on that as well. And again, we'll share this session afterwards.
I think we have one question in the Q&A.
Okay, let me have a look. Are there any reference customers? So yeah, very good question actually. So we've currently got one customer. So we only just launched this product back in July. So we've been working with a number of customers that we launched with. So we've got one live customer and a number of customers that is about to go live. So yeah, we're early on this journey. Let's be honest about it. We've the roadmap itself that we're applying a lot of time into, and what we see at the moment is customers are sort of teetering around this area and topic and looking at it. So what we see from our customer footprint perspective, most of them have been waiting for the Business One integration to be released, and that's the feedback that we've had. And as I said early on in the call, is ready. It's just due to be released with the 2208 feature pack release from Business One. So we're just waiting for the team to release that. That'll be there. Because without that, Business One customers didn't want to obviously go ahead until that was ready, and that's absolutely the right thing to do. So that's the reason that we've only got one customer at the moment. But once the Business One integration is released, we're expecting that to increase rapidly.
Very good.
Good. Okay. Well, I think that's probably it for today. Again, please feel free to reach out, and we can cover that. Emil, do you want to say anything to close?
I can see there's another question here.
There's another question coming in.
Yeah.
Yes. Will it run? Yes, with on-premise solutions. Absolutely, yes. Obviously, with Business One, particularly being an on-premise solution, whether it's on-premise or hosted, it will run with on-premise solutions. The APIs are there, ready, available. Obviously, we're releasing the Business One integration, but on the SAP API Hub, we already have the APIs ready and open there to consume. So whether it's Business One, which will come with a native integration anyway, or if you run any add-ons or any alternative third-party solutions, you can integrate them and push that data through the APIs. So yes.
Perfect. Yeah. I don't think there is any more questions. But thank you, Mark, for coming and showing us about the solution. It was very good. And I will say to the audience that if they have any questions after this presentation, just contact bid people and we will try to answer that and get more information about the solution. But thank you, Mark, for this. It was very good, and we will be in touch for the future.
No, perfect. Thank you for inviting me along. Again, any questions, please shout up. And I suppose one last thing, good luck to Denmark today in the World Cup.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Have a nice day, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.